consumer credit is good for a bunch of reasons. So the first reason, and maybe the most obvious reason, is sometimes you don't have enough money to buy what you want at a particular time. Say you want to buy a house. If you had to save up to wait for years and years in order to buy a house, you'd be living in an apartment for most of your life before you get to enjoy living in your own place. Instead, with consumer credit, you can get a mortgage, borrow from a bank, buy the house, live in that house for the 25 years or more that you're paying off your mortgage. Now, it applies to big things, but it also applies to much smaller things. If you want to buy a whole bunch of things in 1 month, say December, and then have your Christmas presents, but then pay it off over the rest of the year, you can do that with consumer credit. Otherwise, you'd have to get ready and save up, and you couldn't buy maybe that thing you want to buy for your spouse or your kids or your parents just because you didn't have the money in advance, even though you know you'll have the money in the future.
Consumer credit is a blessing. Consumer credit cards offer consumers access to unsecured credit that's accepted around the world by literally millions of retailers, and they also offer consumers with a host of benefits: fraud protection, travel insurance, car insurance, reward programs, etc. The primary role of credit cards is to offer consumers with interest-free debt. The period of time in which consumer credit card debt is interest-free from the date of purchase until when it has to be paid is up to 7 weeks long. Now, of course, at the same time, credit cards offer consumers the opportunity to accumulate debt on which they do have to pay interest. And there are a lot of misconceptions about Canadian credit card debt. One reason is that Canadian credit card debt is a little different from US credit card debt, so let's just take a look at the facts. So 70% of Canadian households pay off their credit card bills in full every month. In the US, only 50% do. Of those who don't pay off their credit card debt in full every month, 93% are paying more than the minimum amount, which suggests that Canadian households who incur debt are succeeding in managing that debt and paying it back over time. Credit cards account for just 5% of total household debt. This shows us that Canadians are going out and seeking other forms of debt when they have to hold debt for longer. Okay? Now, it's harder to arrange, it's not as convenient, they usually need to put up some collateral, but they're using credit cards for short-term debt. There's a common misconception that the large majority of Canadian credit card debt is carried by very low-income households. That's not true. Actually, the proportion of low-income, middle-income, and high-income households who carry credit card debt is almost exactly the same. Households that carry credit card debt are not highly delinquent. Actually, in Canada, credit card delinquency rates are quite low. They're half of what they are in the US. There's also a misconception that Canadians who carry credit card debt do so at high interest rates. Actually, in Canada, there are 70 low interest rate credit cards. 40 of them have interest rates of less than 12%. A significant proportion of credit card debt is carried at 0%, and those 0% introductory rates are available for up to 2 years. So overall, credit card debt offers Canadians an opportunity to carry debt for short periods of time at reasonable interest rates, and Canadians are managing to pay it back relatively quickly.
I definitely think consumer credit is a curse. We have known from lots of literatures or research findings that people have trouble managing their credit, and they overspend, and they don't think about how to pay back their debts, especially when they use credit cards or electronic payment methods. So when consumers get an increase of credit line or get a credit line, most of them will automatically think about getting this as free money, but they never think about whether they are going to pay the bills or whether how they can pay for those bills. And nowadays, we have this generation of people who are impulsive, providing them with credit lines or increase of credit lines will only encourage their impulsive spending. So if you provide people with those credit lines and make it easy to overspend, you will create a situation where people have lots of immediate consumptions and do not really think about how they can repay their bills or to make their ends meet.
So I would say it is a curse. And why is that? A lot of you know that credit cards charge very high interest rate, and there's a good chance, there's a reasonable chance that people may get into credit card debt. I think that's one kind of obvious reason why it is could be a negative thing for us. And another reason why I think it can be negative for us is less obvious. It has something to do with what's so-called interchange fee. And what is interchange fee? Interchange fee is, in short, is basically a fee that the merchants will have to pay to the credit card system in order to settle the payments. And so what happens is every $100 that you pay, if you pay by credit card, the merchant may only get $97 or $95 back, depending on which credit card you're using. And so essentially, because they don't get 100% of the payment back, that actually increased their cost. And so this is kind of implicit cost, because consumers don't see it, and the merchants see it, feel it, and they feel it very strongly. So what they do is they actually have to raise the price, and they raise the price across the board, and not just for the people who pay by credit card. In fact, the people who pay by cash, they also have to bear that cost. And this is something that I think is less well known. And this is something I think, I want everyone to have a debate about. Okay, so that's basically my position.